Hello. This is uh, this is the first of some videos I'm going to make about dystopian books, and I will at some point be doing a review of 1984 and all the usual sorts of dystopia books. But I'm going to start this series with a book that isn't on any dystopian book list, but as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the first books that got me, sort of woke me up to the potential of evil uh, emanating from the people who we are meant to trust with our care. So the book is Legion of the Damned by Sven Hassel. I'm lucky enough to have a first edition in English. It is a second pressing, but it's in good condition. And it's a book that my grandfather recommended to me many years ago, when I was probably about 14 or 15. And like so many people like me, young men, were doing badly at school, had been told that I was irredeemably thick, and there wasn't really much of an option for me in life, except being a bin man. I shit you not, teachers actually said that to me, or joining the army. And so I was seriously considering joining the army. And I remember my granddad, I'd love to say that he sat me down and said, Stephen, please read this book, and then, when you know something about what can happen in a war, then you can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to join the army. All I can say is, from memory, that he asked, he talked about this book, and he said that I should read it. So I was an avid reader at the time. I still am, not as avid as I used to be. I've been infected with phone use, so it's an addiction I do have to crack, because it's making me and the rest of the population of the planet go insane. So yeah, I read this book, and it blew me away. And at first I was like, oh, it's not very well written, and I was by the time I was 15, I was reading some fairly complex books. I didn't write a list. I can't think of them offhand now, but I was reading, books. I wasn't reading Janet and John and Spot the Dog. I'd moved beyond that, and I found Sven Hassel's book to be quite, I wouldn't say amateurish, but it didn't follow any of the forms that I got used to. I mean, I think humans, when we're developing, we're always trying to find rules, aren't we? We're always trying to find datum points, and then we can go, oh, well, this is like this, so next time I encounter it, I'll recognise it, or I'll have an opinion on it. And this book was disarmingly different to anything I'd read before. So, but as I got further into it, and I'm reading it for the umpteenth time at the minute, and I probably should have finished it before I started doing this video, but I don't have a great deal of time in between work and family life, so I just sort of take the opportunity and try and rely on my bullshit flow to carry me through for 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever it'll take. So yeah, and this is, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you about the book. I'm not trying to sell it to you. I'm just telling you about the book. And it's it's horrific. It truly is. It's about as horrific as that dickhead next door and his dogs. But the things that happen, the things that are described, how people when they get given ultimate power over other human beings, the way that they behave can be shocking, and we see that in small ways, like in a factory where you might have a charge hand who, you know, uses favoritism and cronyism to make other people's lives a misery, and derives happiness and satisfaction from seeing the unhappiness of others. But it's not, that sort of behaviour isn't confined just to little dictators in factory positions. It happens everywhere. It happens in every form of organisation. It happens in friend groups. There are always people that we encounter in life who are more than happy to, and it's kind of, especially in the Sven Hassel books, you're talking about the Third Reich and Nazis and all that horrible shit. And it's like people will do the most awful things because Hitler said it was okay, and you know, Hitler's in charge. So, and people do that. People, and they interpret things as well. You know, I don't think Hitler had enough time to go round and issue individual orders to every like dickhead in his army and say, well, yeah, you treat them like that, and you treat them like that, and you do this. No, he left it wide open to interpretation, and you know, so he dehumanized people, and you know, said people were scum and Untermenschen, all the horrible stuff, and yeah, and it's the dehumanizing thing that that is used to such great effect, whether it be the Third Reich or a factory, or the media, or in government, in life. People do it all the time. We haven't grown out of it just because we've got mobile phones and you know, drones or whatever you want to point at as being like an amazing technology. We're still exactly the same as we were in the time of the witch trials and all that really horrible, shameful history stuff that's gone on before us. We haven't changed. You get somebody from today as a baby and take them back 500, 600, 2,000 years, whatever, and bring them up in that world, and they will be whatever that world makes them. And likewise, take somebody from there, from 2,000 years ago, bring them forward, bring them up in our time, and they'll be, you know, pinned to a mobile phone just the same as everybody else is. So yeah, I digress slightly, but you know, this book is about life and death. And what amazed me, and it amazes me that it amazed me, but how Germans are just the same as us. You know, I was brought up in the 70s, and a lot of my teachers and older people that I would talk to had been in the war, and had, you know, my grandmother, for instance, had a very dim view of Germans and Japanese. She never encountered any Japanese people, but she did encounter one day going to work at Lucas in Birmingham, and a large bomb had gone into an apartment building, and this was early on in the war, and it had blown all the occupants out through the windows in pieces, and she had to pick her way through the body parts of people on her way to work. And you know, she endured night after night of the you know, the destruction of Birmingham. So that's a point to, you know, to say that when I was 14, 15, I had a very dim view of Germans. I'd been taught to hate them. basically. And to read Sven Hassel's book made me realise that Germans were just the same as us. You know, they really were. They were no different. They just talk funny and eat slightly different foods. And there's, you know, various differences, but you know, so I started then to feel empathy for them. In fact, a lot of empathy, because you know what they went through, what the German people went through, was, as Sven Hassel says in the early part of this book, he says it about the prison guards and the things that they do. I mean, the things that they do, oh my God. The cruelty is switched up all the way to 11, these Nazi guards. But yeah, they have lost their souls, you know. The people who do these things have lost their souls. And of course there's degrees of this, isn't there? You know, the prison guards are an extreme example of, oh, Hitler said I could do it, so that's all right. But it goes in degrees, doesn't it? You know, and yeah, obviously the Nazi guards were killing people and torturing people. But in normal society, like we have now, and as I'm recording this, there has been a lot of civil disturbances in the first month of the new Labour government. And I've seen things, and I've read things, and I'm shocked and horrified at what humans will do to one another. And how one group of people thinks their ideology is absolutely... Because you have to imagine that the Nazis didn't actually think they were doing anything wrong. They didn't go, ooh, we're evil. They didn't do that. They thought they were right. That's a very, very difficult thing to accept, that they thought that they were right. And, you know, the people who we've seen in recent years in various faraway wars, and they've brought some of that war to here, and you know, done some terrible things in this country, done some terrible things, you know. And I'm not like saying Britain's never done anything bad, because I personally haven't done anything bad in that term, but people from my country have done terrible things overseas and here. But be that as it may, it really does seem to come down to the dehumanisation of people. And, you know, so one group looks upon another group as being first stupid, and then if you can't persuade them to think how you do, then they become really stupid. And then you think, oh, they're not stupid, they're doing it deliberately, they're being deliberately like that. So then they become evil. All of a sudden you're dealing with evil. And if something's evil, then it has to be destroyed, doesn't it? Or subjugated to the point where it's no longer a threat. And it is all just a matter of degrees, I think. Yeah. That's not the central message of the book, I don't think. Maybe it is, I don't know. But it does seem to be hammered home over and over again in the book, of the senselessness of war, the stupidity of war, the horrible pains and injustice that is visited upon the masses by the few, or visited on the masses by the masses at the behest of the few. And that's also part of the insanity, is how you've got a small number of people. I was talking to somebody at work about this the other day, and I put it down to nobody wants to be on the front row that gets machine gunned, you know. So because of that, a small number of people that you could easily overthrow end up being in charge and making you do things. And there's, you know, if people just went, oh, fuck it, no, not letting that happen, and just charged en masse, yes, there would be, the first row would be killed, but the second and third rows would get through before the bad guys with the machine guns could reload, and then you'd win. But it doesn't seem to happen that often, because, you know, I guess people's sense of what do you call it, self-preservation is very strong, so they don't want to be the first one to die. Nobody wants to die. Well, some people do, but, you know, that's a different subject altogether. So, you know, sum it up, a few people are in charge of huge numbers of people, and those few people do favours or treat some of the people favourably, and, you know, they get superficial prizes, gifts, and then they are more than happy to do terrible things to their own people, the people from the same class as them. And it just keeps on going on. And I think, yeah, that, I mean, again, that's what the book means to me. It's the is it reciprocity? Is that a word? The reciprocal nature of human existence. You know, we just do the same things over and over and over again. The same sorts of people end up in charge, and the same sorts of people end up being forgotten names in a bloody conflict of some kind. You know, I would urge anybody who's not read Legion of the Damned to read it. It's very thought-provoking. It's amazing. You know, his friends, he names them all at the beginning of the book, and 3 women as well who helped him out over the years, including Eva, who in the beginning of the book, she basically saves his life by lying that she led him astray and encouraged him to desert. And, you know, she's been tortured, he's been tortured. It's just awful. It really is, but it's also an amazing book. So he talks about his friends, and they're all people who, you know, they're not bad people. They're just, you know, because people break laws, and some people break laws that are sort of universal. I won't go into those because I don't want to get kicked off YouTube, but you know what I mean. There's certain laws. Let's think 10 Commandments. If you know about 10 Commandments, those sorts of laws, you break those, you know, they're universal, I would say, no matter what religion or where you come from. But when you've got a tyrannical dictatorship like Nazi Germany, they come up with new laws, you know, and a law could be, oh, you said something mean about the leader or one of the leader's friends, or you criticised them publicly, that kind of thing. And it's, as somebody who was a chauffeur for 10 years and lost a few customers by being a bit mouthy and giving my opinion, I know how capricious these wankers can be, these elites. And it gets to the point where, you know, almost anything you do that they don't immediately love is a crime. And that's a scary thing. So you end up not knowing what is a crime, and I think that's part of what they do. They make it so difficult to know when you're breaking the law, that you're so careful that you are deactivated. You are not going to be a problem to them because you're so terrified, and you're terrified of they make the consequences so bad that if you break the law, you're so fucked. So you don't break the law if you know what the law is. And a lot of the time you don't. One of his friends, and I'm doing this from memory now, but I'm fairly sure this was roughly how it goes. One of his friends is called Porter, and I think he's from Berlin. He's from a German city anyway. And he gets pissed and he meets a load of communists, or he is a communist, I forget exactly which, but it's all a big laugh, you know. And they go and put a communist flag on top of some government building. And they all get arrested, and the cops think it's hilarious, and they give the names in and all the rest. And then years later, when the Nazis get in, the Nazis are going through like old police reports and arrest reports, trying to find crimes from the past that they can punish in the present. And this is how Porter gets caught and put into a penal battalion. Penal battalion being an army battalion made up of ex-prisoners. And you know, and it's amazing how these things can happen. You can have an opinion. It can be valid, or it can, you know, but it's an opinion. And you say it, or you write it, or you post it publicly. And then years later, especially now in our world, the digital world records everything. You know, it might come to the point in the future where this video that I'm making now becomes illegal, because I'm not criticizing anything, but I'm using a questioning, a critique, to encourage people to look at what's going on and to understand what's going on. And yeah, because this Porter gets arrested, and he goes through all the hell, and you know, sent to the Eastern Front, and you know, all that goes with it. And all of the guys that he's friends with, and he describes in his book and his subsequent books, they're people. They're just ordinary working class people like myself. I'm just an ordinary working class man. I drive a crane. I've done lots of things in my life. Yeah, I was a chauffeur for 10 years, but that was just fucking awful, you know. Really awful. And didn't make any money at all, considering you're driving millionaires around. You end up like with debts. So go figure. But some people are better at it than me. People who are more subservient. It's a subservient job. It's not for the likes of me, the gobby mouthy people. Yeah, but all these guys in his book, you know, they're just ordinary blokes, and a lot of people who are in authority in his books are complete wankers. And that's been my experience of life as well. There's very few, but it's not true. Not completely true. A lot of people in authority are complete wankers, but some are the best of us. Some people who end up in positions of authority are fantastic. They are the best of us. They're the best of what the human race can be. But they are few and far between, and they extremely rarely end up in positions of any real power. To get into real power, it would seem that you have got to be less than the best that we have to offer as a species. You see how I'm guarding my language there? I'm not saying anything out blatantly. I've got very strong opinions, but I'm just talking in generalizations, because we potentially live in dangerous times. So I don't want to say too much more about the book, but I guess summing up, the idea is that you can read about dystopias, and they're always fascinating because they're like a black mirror. We're a dark, opaque mirror of our own reality, and look in it if you dare, because you'll see yourself there, and it's, you don't want to be there. Nobody wants to be in a dystopia, but this is what I find with myself now. I've never really trusted the foundations of the society that I was born into, and now I'm in my 50s. I'm seeing that I was right to feel that way. The foundations are weak. They are weak, and they are crumbling, and you find yourself in a dystopia so fast. I mean, the whole like global sneezing incident that happened from 2020 to 2022, really, that was an incredible time. People will be, well, people might be talking about it in years to come, but the way records can be changed and things deleted, and who knows what we're going to be privy to in the future. And the thing is, that matters to me. I won't be around. I'll be gone, but I actually care about history and about how it's recorded, and it should be accurate. But the winners write the history, don't they? So I guess you always end up with a distortion or downright lies. It's very difficult to write down history with no bias. It's just the way it is, I guess. So yeah, not the happiest video, but yeah, I urge you to read the Legion of the Damned by Sven Hassel. If you can get an original copy, all well and good. Beautiful artwork. I don't know why the top of the book is black. That's pretty cool. The rest of it's white. I don't know why that is. And also, such an old book, you've got that historicity. You've got that somebody else read it and touched it. Those words years ago. You have that connection with the person that read it before, which I really like. And I imagine one day somebody else read that book, maybe when I'm gone, and they'll be reading the same words off the same pages, handling them, and the book survives, whereas I'm gone and forgotten, part of history, which is, that's what. Sorry, live in a house full of people. We all just become dust on the wind or whatever, whichever cliche you want to use. But yeah, I urge you again, repeatedly, read this book. And the next book that I'm going to review is another one that isn't a traditional dystopia novel, but it's called The Lantern Bearers, and I think the author is Rosemary Sutcliffe. And really, they're kind of intelligent mid to late teen books. I think that's what they were aimed at, and that's when I first read The Lantern Bearers. But it's funny, I gave it to my one of my sons recently, one who reads a lot, and he struggled with it. He struggled with the language and the complexity of the book. Says a lot, really, about the way people have been taught in the last 30 years. Very, very differently to the way I was taught. And I was mostly not taught because I was deemed to be unteachable and an idiot. But luckily I managed to teach myself a few things along the way. But that like I say, that book was aimed at my son's age group, and he couldn't deal with that book. It was too complex for him. But it's a book about the end of the Roman occupation, and a young man, I forget his name, and his sister, they stay in Romano, Britain, and then their culture is enhanced by lots of migrants, and you see what happens there. And the idea of the lantern bearers is that they like hold on to the knowledge, and hopefully one day be able to pass it on to somebody, and then hopefully they'll pass it on to somebody, and then one day people will be free again to enjoy that knowledge. Anyway, I'm not going to do that as well. I've already talked enough. So if you've managed to make it this far, well done. You're to be commended. Till next time.